Welcome to Comic Wars. Think of the show as Fight Night, but without the mess of actual combat. The data will speak for itself before the outcome, but in case it doesn't, we will break all of it down in the outcome at the end of the show. Without further ado, let's dive right into our first competitor. Before we do that, this is another special episode where we do have some real origins for our characters here. As you can see, our episode today is Alphaman versus Zetaman. Two characters that were inspired by the exact same person. Before we get into those origins, we have one quick thing to go over, which is that overview. So there's no guests tonight. This is okay. I'm not going to give up any guesses tonight because we are just comparing two variations of the same guy. One, my iteration of it, which is inspired by the superhero Zetaman, and the other one is a parody version of the same character, Zeta. As usual, we're going to go over some background details, covering who they are, what they do as their day job. Maybe this influences who they are and how they actually interact. And then we've got the feats, which is going to go and compare strength. So their powerful punches and kicks, things like this. Whatever we have data on, we're going to go and analyze. And then we're going to go over durability. Can they take a hit or not? What kinds of hits have they survived? Etc. After that, then we got speed and agility. How fast can they get over to somebody? How fast can they evade? What are the feats we're looking at? Where's the proof of these things? And there's not a whole lot of combat that we've got from these characters at the moment, but I wanted to do another inspired character. And regardless, however this goes, there will be more information when it comes into the next round of this Comic Wars tournament, if you will, which is how this is all set up. It's all tournament format. First rounds are going now. Second rounds are where the winner from these rounds move on to go against their next opponent. After we got the feats, then we're going to go over actual data analysis. What does this mean for everything? This character can punch this hard. How hard are they hitting? And how is that going to affect affect their opponent? How fast can they move? And how is this going to go and change maybe how the opponent of said character is going to be able to react to that? And then we're going to go over character pros and cons. Where are their strengths and where are their weaknesses, and how do they kind of compare? And if we had a guess, this would be where the guests analyze as well, and then we'd follow up with the outcome. All right? So without further ado, we're going to go jump right into the origins. And so, what do we have here? Oopsies. We have the real-life superhero himself, Zetaman. As you can see, the one on the right looks almost identical in a lot of ways. And the one on the left, not really, but they are based on the same character. How do I know this? Because Alphaman, which is my character on the left, I created myself in 2015. 2014 to 15-ish. I actually put pen to paper in 2015. And Zetaman was created by Alien King, based on himself. He's a former costume activist who is retired now, but used to reside in the Portland metro area and would do tons of homeless outreach and charity events, and just doing a lot of good work to help out the needy. Very, very valuable work, I think. So how this kind of looks, basically how this breaks down. So Zetaman in the comic is just a parody of Alien King himself during his kind of costume activism days. He threw a lot of fictional aspects into it, because Zetaman was running into Xenu aliens, which are his brand of aliens in the Zetaverse, if you will, which is his comic book set, the Nakedverse, if you will. There's the Zetaverse, which is the different Zetamen throughout the Totally Nakedverse. And then there's different iterations of Zetaman, but we're not using every single one because he has two Zetaman characters that are up there. I would even argue potentially more powerful than even the likes of Superman at his highest. We're talking just absolute, just nothing beats it. But we're looking at the standard universe and general universe is how his Zetaman characters are. And the one that is predominantly featured the most in the comics, because other ones we don't have a lot of data on. All we know is they're up there at the likes of Superman and other invincible tier characters, if you will. But then, of course, we have Alphaman, who is directly inspired by the work and personality, because I made pretty good friends with Ilya, and this is where this kind of came down. So go and make a character based on him because the friend, he's a good character, did some good work throughout. So his inspiration continued on into Rain City, where Crow is. So next we have the background. So what is the difference between Alphaman and Zeta? Let's start off with the background. So we got the real name of Alphaman is Brian Zeta. He is 28 as of 2010. Where all the comics kind of reside around this time. They go from that time. Should have been able to bring there. But so his height is 5'6", not between 5'6". So I messed up. And he's 190 pounds. So I got exact, so I made the correct. I'm not getting into how his character arc goes because as his character arc goes for like season 1, which I never got to finish, due to going on to get all the latest from the comic industry and game industry. I do have an exact timeline of where he goes from point to point. He becomes pretty powerful. Nothing like anything the likes of Superman tier or anything remotely close to that, but he's actually able to be a lot more formidable against Crow later on, but that's not necessarily... His Crow is increasing as well, so is he really going to be able to keep up with that Crow? He gets better and better, and so does Alphaman, but I digress. But his occupation as an activist is he does do some activism. He does homeless outreach, charity events. He's Rain City's first superhero, after all. And so he does do a lot of activism and homeless outreach and things like this to really help the needy. But he also is a part-time vigilante, if you will. He does fight crime alongside Crow anytime Crow is fighting crime downtown Rain City. Area of operations downtown Rain City. That's pretty obvious there. That's the only area he works because that's where the homeless population is at its greatest in Rain City, is in downtown Rain City. So, personality, he's very trusting, to the point of, like I put here, naive. He's very, very quick to just trust everybody as much as possible. But he's a born leader, which is not, I did not put in there for his personality because end of the day, is that really a personality trait? Kinda, but not really in this sense because it breaks down further. He's very, very methodical, so he'll sit there and he'll think things through up until the very last second if he has to see if there's another way. So that way everybody gets out ahead or unscathed. He's not very quick to just kind of drop it. Well, whatever. This guy, he made his choice. I'm gonna go unscathed. He's gonna do everything he can to make sure everybody gets out unscathed. So this is your generic superhero type trait. That you see in the comics and all this. Any superhero that tries to go and save as many people as possible, including the villain. In the Crowverse, there's not a lot. Even Crow at times. Not really too quick to just try and let's save everybody. Nah, you're bad, you do something wrong, he's probably going to go and beat you up, take you down, arrest you. But Alphaman is also very, very much a pacifist, mostly. When it comes to the majority of the situations he's in a fight. So he does a lot of de-escalation techniques, but he is not afraid to necessarily throw down. And in Pro Issue 4, you see that you get to see kind of how he operates as a fighter. He's very, very defensive, and you'll see the martial arts and all this he's learned over the course of his training. He's very, very much about honor, so he's going to do what is right. And not just, he's going to do it for himself, because it's not about family, it's not about this. This is about himself. He's all about honoring other people and being honorable towards other people, because he doesn't want to bring shame upon himself. But he's also got the downside. He, as much of leadership skills as he does actually have, and how he operates throughout his first issue, which I'm not going to show anything, but I'm going to give some examples from it. He tends to kind of trip over himself. One of his villains that he runs into is he goes after this group called Tick, which is kind of like it's the opposite of an S4R, which is Superheroes for Real organization in Builders, which was kind of like how the real life superheroes do in our universe, or Planet Earth, right? So how they operate. You guys are familiar with that. Some of them are quite pretty nice individuals. They do a lot of good for themselves, especially in this age. But they have some assault crimes, for instance, just anti-man. Also, retire fields, other people would try moves. As it was explained, he would try runs to go rid the city of rid the Pokemon. There's a cold case criminals and then 5 case criminals as well. And then just a little bit of miscellaneous information here. And I'll cover some more over his background here in a sec, which it'll get into his feats, of course. He's also the former leader of the Alternatives, which is a group of S4R individuals. And they betray him in issue 4. We don't get the full explanation in issue 4, but it's alluded to between that and perspectives from Rain City that his wife, which was Devil's Maw, had conspired while also being kind of in a... she was in a relationship of sorts. She was having an affair with Black Blade, which is one of his teammates as well, and they conspired to kill him for the life insurance money that he was getting from his day job. But as for his occupation, I mean, he kind of goes job to job. That's how Orion Zeke works. He's barely cutting it, basically. But he does get assistance, and he finds other ways to go and make things work so he can get better equipment for his crime fighting and activism. All right. Next, we got the feats. So Alphaman's nothing really all that special when it comes to strength. He just basically average human strength capabilities. So you can imagine the average human being. What are they capable? Or average human male. That's basically what he's going to be able to be capable of. He's not super strong by any means. Doesn't mean he's superhuman strength, but he does work out. Obviously, you can see he does have 6-pack abs. He has pecs. All this. He is muscly, but he's only 190 pounds at 5'6". He's very, very lean. As for his durability, all we need to know about this is he's got carbon fiber plate armor, so he's got same type of armor roughly as Crow. And the little detail I didn't include in this is it's rough. It's got a very, very rough texture. So that way, if somebody hits him, they're hurting themselves essentially. As for his speed and agility, now this is a feat that's actually pretty interesting, because then you'd have to go back to knowing a little bit about Crow, which I will go into a little bit of detail here. When it comes to his speed and agility, he's actually able to he's capable of keeping track of Crow's position in combat. That you might think is, oh, okay, that's not too bad. Except when you see how fast he moves and what he uses. He's able to keep track of him. Now, Crow is a very acrobatic fighter. He's jumping all over the battlefield, essentially. You know, if there's a group of enemies, he's all over the place. He'll catch things in the air as he's fighting somebody else, throw them, and hit them precisely with said weapons or thrown objects. He's capable of he'll go and grapple somebody while he's also grappling another guy and taking a couple other guys down. This is a character that's a very, very powerful fighter, especially in the Crow universe. He's very, very powerful. But he doesn't know any superpowers at all. He's got gadgets. He's a masterful tactician and fighter. But he's also got really, really good usage of his gadgets. But he's able to keep track of him through all of that after being with a flash. What's it called? A flash pellet, which is essentially like a flashbang that Crow keeps on him. He keeps 5 of those and 5 smoke pellets on him at a time. Even after a flash pellet hits, he's able to quickly shake that off, and he's able to keep track of him. Shortly after that, when we do see Crow face off against alternatives, Crow uses 1 flash, 2 smoke pellets. 1 is just really getting out of battle and leaving, but he's able to keep track of Crow's movements during all of this. That takes a pretty intense focus, if you will, and be able to kind of think really quick. But at the same time, he was also quick to, while he's also keeping an eye on him, he's also got his collapsible baton. He's able to whip out real quick, and he get into a very, very defensive position to kind of wall off any attack potentially that Crow could throw at him. Except Crow didn't actually want to fight him, which is where that comes down to. So when it comes down to, this is where we need to break this down, is the combat capabilities. So before I went on my hiatus, I had the entire Rain City Origins for Alphaman written and ready to go. I don't have it any longer, and I can't find my books with it. So I'll be redoing this. But when it comes to his martial prowess, he's a novice in Aikido, Krav Maga, Judo, and boxing. So he's not an expert by any means. He's learning. He's still learning. He wants to be more powerful. He wants to be able to fight and be able to go and fend off guys that are much greater than he was when he first started. Well, he's able to, but now he's also got he's proficient in his bow staff usage. And that's where his greatest strength is when it comes to his martial prowess, because it's also part of his ingenuity. So, can he fight barehanded? Yes, he can. It's going to be more defensive. As Aikido and Judo are more defensive. Krav Maga, it's both offense and defense. And then you've got boxing, which is, you've got people that'll argue it's defensive, because then you got the evasive maneuvers, and then you've got also blocks and counters and all this. And so there's a lot of bobbing and weaving. He's all about trying to stay stationary as much as possible, but if he has to, he can lunge in, but he's going to go very short distances. But he's all about trying to disable the opponent as quickly as possible so he can get out of the scenario. Once again, going back on his personality, he's a pacifist. So this is going to allow for him to just kind of get one and done, and he's able to back off, get his hands up, hey, don't want to fight kind of thing, But he does use his bow staff to kind of intimidate and create a defensive wall of sorts that allow for offensive maneuvers if need be. So he can go for some sweeps, he can go for some stabs, he can go for some slams, he can go for blocks, he can go for counters, trips, he can do all sorts of things. He can go in for grabs and holds, lots and lots of things he can do. And of course, that comes back to his gadgets. What does he have? He has a collapsible bow staff. And up until with Rain City Origins and Perspectives from Rain City, and then Crow issue number 4, plus with what we get in the first part of Alphaman and the first few issues, is what we get to see a couple more combat situations, which I'm going to describe and not really show off at the moment. But he does take on some villains, but he does go and do it more passively. And when he does actually have to physically intervene and defend himself and others, he's able to do it in a way that just very, very quick. He didn't knock the guy out. He's not knocking his opponents out. He's stopping them. That's all it is. Not your typical type of superhero type activity. Usually there's a big fight. He avoids them. Might seem kind of weird. Well, is it an action comic? Yes, it is. It is an action comic. There's all sorts of things going on to play in the background. And you'll see how that develops over time as well. Alright, well, let's move on to his opponent, though. For sure, you guys are got to be interested in that by now, right? So his opponent is Zetaman. Real name is Ilya King. We're not given his age in the comic, so I can't give that. I'm not going to give up Ilya's real age. It's none of, as far as I'm concerned, that's not who we're analyzing. But this is where, just like the rest of the Totally Naked Man characters, the height, this guy's height varies pretty drastically in the comics. He goes between 5'2", or 5 foot 2 inches roughly, to about 6 foot 6 inches roughly. He's got times where he's actually taller than Totally Naked. So it varies, and that's all because of his art style. It's just how he did it, and that's okay. Just means how it's gonna break down. Just like his age, it's actually known. Whatever given age, we know that his occupation is a costume activist. And like I said, there's many different iterations throughout the Zeta. When we get into the Zetaverse, which is the Zetaman, or Zetaman in the Totally universe, or multiverse. His area of operation is Rose City, and then his personality. This breaks down pretty easily. He's a pessimist. He's stressed out all the time, and he's annoyed very, very easily. So now you can kind of see how he is. He's kind of negative, kind of doom and gloomish almost. He can be fun, of course, as well, but it's generally what we get from his personality. As for his miscellaneous information here, we have that he is the former leader of the Alternates. Once again, same kind of thing. He had an outs with the Alternates, but he ended up becoming a member of the New Alternates, which consists of himself, Anti-Man, extremely conservative woman. There were some others that joined as well, which is what we have typically. Here's this. Next, we have the feats. So his strength, average human. We don't really see any big feats of strength. We can assume he's probably average human, maybe a little bit below, possibly. I wouldn't say above. Just based on what I could find, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot. As for his durability, he's wearing clothing. He has taken hits and was able to just kind of shrug off those hits from Agent No. And then the known thugs from Fabulous. He was getting attacked pretty badly. But he was able to shrug those hits off. And get right back up, no problem. As for his speed and agility, he kept up with the villain Roach after the stab of his tire. And that was running, but even then, by the end of that, he seemed a little out of breath, so he doesn't really have the endurance there. As for his combat capability, we know one thing alone. He's got novice Crocodile. He lacks behind extreme concern. That's what it comes down to. He really doesn't want to spar with her or get any practice in. Almost having that look of, oh, no, please, no, I'm afraid, kind of thing. As for his ingenuity, we don't see really any combat from him a lot. There's very, very little we do see, and what we do see, it's not really, there's no ingenuity, it's just brawling. So, going back our overview here, we've already gone through background details and feats. So if we're looking at it, the data analysis, all we really have to say about that, this is really all we need to go over, is the fact that Alphaman is armored and he carries a weapon. when it comes down to it, his skills, he's going to be able to easily do better when it comes to his martial prowess. He's also able to keep up with Crow in combat. Now, that's going to come down to he's keeping track and he's able to move his body enough. Now, does that say a whole lot? No. By moving your body just a little bit, but he's able to almost hone in. He knows where he's at. Keeping track of Crow, once again, is a feat in himself. He's very, very fast. He's not the fastest hero or villain. He's not even faster than all the villains. But he is very fast, especially considering the fact that he's 300 pounds with his gear on. And he's able to move very, very acrobatically, very silently. So he's able to go and carry his weight very well as well, and he's able to keep an eye on him in combat and also move around as need be. But he's also able to, he knows when to go in for the strike if he absolutely has to. He's going to try and fight. When it comes down to Zetaman, he's just a brawler. Pessimistic, he's easily in the way. This is the type of guy that's going to charge in. He's going to get annoyed with him. He's going to start calling names potentially. There will probably be a little bit of name calling back and forth, but for the most part, based on personality alone, then on a whole name calling. And because he's so methodical, he's going to go and think, how do I get out of this without the least amount of effort? I don't want to have to fight this guy. Well, Zetaman is going to be very, very much annoying. This guy, he's going to try and fight me. Why? It's going to be very down on himself. So this is going to be a pretty one-sided fight, actually. When I say pretty one-sided, I mean it's one-sided. I just wanted to go and compare these two characters since they are the same. They're based on the same character. But they're two different people. One is my view on how Ilya was and could have progressed to, and one is himself and how his costume acted. Kind of a community of that. Alright. So what do you guys think? Do you think Zetaman has a chance against Alphaman? Or do you think Alphaman is just gonna die? What do you guys think? I'll give you guys a second or two. I think it's pretty apparent. Alright, I'm going to go over one more thing, which is the character pros and cons, which we went over a little bit in better analysis anyways. Here's the pro of Alphaman. He's armored. Let's look at a con. That's extra weight. Let's look over at Zeta. Wearing clothing. It's light. Con, easy to receive no damage. Now we're going to go back into this. Pro on for Alphaman carries a bow staff, classical bow staff. So he's got a weapon, and classical bow staff is going to be made of some kind of metal. That's the con of it. Now you got it's basically a pipe, which if you get too hard, potentially material pipe it's made out of, so you can make this classical bow staff, unless it is like steel. And it's got to be some pretty tough steel, you're more or less looking at something that's probably going to be very flimsy. So he'd have to get a really, really good swing with that. And then, those are things to fall back onto, but comes out of the bow staff here. What does Zetaman have? He can take hits a little bit from punches and kicks and all that. As long as they're not too hard, right? So then you go and look more at pros, and you're seeing more pros on Alphaman's side. That's where they kind of stop. So, as for the outcome, pretty apparent. Alphaman wins this. It's a landslide victory. Very, very easy victory. And it's nothing against Ilya's Zetaman parody character. No, it's, like I said, once again, this was a character comparison. They're based on the same guy. But one took he got into combat scenarios. he comes better equipped. he's able to handle the stress of combat a lot better than Zetaman can. So, any questions? I'm assuming probably not, and that's okay. Next, what do we have? This is where we're going to go. We're ending our show tonight. Just to go and move on to the preview for Monday. And this is another character of mine here. Is this Captain Meow Meow, which is a character I created. My wife actually came up with the name Captain Meow Meow, and she thought it was an interesting name. I just went with it. It's kind of an interesting character considering her powers and her capabilities, versus Kipo Oak from Kipo, the Netflix series, also based on a webcomic. And we're looking at kaiju versus non-kaiju if you really want to look at it. So, I'll give you guys till Monday to really come up with some good, strong guesses. Now, I tell you this, because it's Captain Meow Meow, you don't really know what she's capable of yet. Unless you followed my comics from Rain City Origins, perspectives from Rain City, you wouldn't know anything about her. Plus, her story, I did have more coming, and she was supposed to have her own comic. I have an entire comic that will be ready hopefully by January. If not, it'll be sometime between January and March next year. But she will be involved also in the Explore Rain City series as well. So expect to see more of that coming real soon. And we'll see you guys on Monday.